When you hear the name Bob Marley, you likely think of reggae, iconic music, and a message of love and unity that transcends borders. But behind the music, behind the voice that gave life to songs like No Woman, No Cry, and Redemption Song, was a man who faced an unimaginable struggle, one that ultimately led to his untimely death. How did the man who brought joy to millions of people around the world meet his tragic end? What was the cause behind the passing of this musical legend, whose legacy continues to influence countless artists and activists today? As we dive into this story, it's essential to understand not just how Bob Marley died, but also the journey he took during his final years. His battle with a disease that not only took his life, but also gave rise to deeper reflections on life, health, and spirituality. It's a story of resilience, defiance, and ultimately, the quiet acceptance of fate. Before we continue, we'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below and let us know where you're tuning in from. And don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel if you're enjoying this deep dive into the life and legacy of Bob Marley. Stay with us, and let's explore this fascinating chapter in the history of one of the greatest figures in music and culture. Bob Marley's journey from the slums of Kingston, Jamaica, to international stardom is a testament to the power of music and the strength of the human spirit. Born in 1945, Robert Nesta Marley was the son of a white British naval officer and a black Jamaican woman, growing up in a world that was often marked by economic hardship and racial tension. Yet, from these difficult beginnings, Marley emerged as one of the most iconic musicians the world has ever seen, using his music to bridge divides and deliver messages of peace, hope, and unity. As a young man, Marley was drawn to music, and it didn't take long before he became involved in the local music scene. In the early 1960s, he formed a group called the Wailers, which would go on to become one of the most important reggae bands in history. Their first big break came in 1973 with the album Catch a Fire, which was a global success and introduced Marley's distinctive sound to a wider audience. His music, infused with Rastafarian beliefs, often carried strong political and social messages, speaking directly to the oppressed and marginalized people of the world. Marley's unique sound, a fusion of traditional Jamaican rhythms with rock and soul influences, set him apart from other musicians of his time. His ability to blend spiritual messages with infectious melodies made him not just a musician, but an advocate for social change. Songs like Get Up, Stand Up, and Buffalo Soldier became anthems for civil rights and resistance against oppression. Through his music, Marley delivered messages that resonated far beyond the music charts. He spoke about freedom, justice, and unity, urging listeners to stand up against injustices and inequalities that plagued society. But it wasn't just his music that made Marley a global figure, it was his personal beliefs and values. Marley's conversion to Rastafarianism, a religion that advocates for peace, love, and unity, deeply influenced his music and public persona. He became a symbol of resistance, not just in his homeland of Jamaica, but around the world. His music was a voice for the voiceless, speaking to the struggles of people in the Third World and those facing oppression everywhere. In addition to his activism, Bob Marley was also a family man, deeply connected to his roots and his people. He had a large family, including several children who would later go on to continue his musical legacy. However, his rising fame came at a personal cost. Despite his success, Marley struggled with personal relationships and the pressures of fame, which often took a toll on his mental and physical health. The 1970s were a particularly transformative period for Marley, both personally and professionally. He released some of his most iconic albums during this time, including Rastaman Vibration, 1976, which solidified his position as one of the most influential musicians in the world. His music became more politically charged, and Marley's visibility grew not just as a musician, but as a cultural icon. His influence spread to new regions, and he became a global ambassador for the reggae movement. However, with fame came challenges. In the late 1970s, Marley was targeted in an assassination attempt, which left him wounded but unbroken. Despite these challenges, Marley remained steadfast in his message of peace and unity. His ability to persevere through personal struggles, both on and off the stage, became a key part of his legacy. But even with all of his success, Marley's life was marked by an ongoing battle that, unbeknownst to the public, was soon to take a very different turn, one that would eventually lead to his untimely death. By the time Bob Marley was in his 30s, he had already cemented his place in music history. However, his health would soon take a drastic turn that not only affected his personal life, but also his career. The first signs of something wrong appeared in 1977, when Marley began experiencing persistent pain in his toe, which he initially dismissed as a simple injury. At first he thought it was just a football injury, a common occurrence for someone with his active lifestyle. But as time passed, the pain grew more intense, and Marley's ability to move with ease was significantly compromised. In the beginning, Marley wasn't particularly concerned. He had a long-standing belief in the power of alternative medicine and natural healing, influenced by his Rastafarian faith. The idea of using medical intervention wasn't something he felt drawn to, so he turned to his community of spiritual healers. However, as the pain persisted and his mobility continued to deteriorate, it became evident that something more serious was at play. At the urging of friends and family, Marley sought professional medical attention in 1978. After undergoing tests, doctors diagnosed him with a form of melanoma, a deadly and aggressive skin cancer. The melanoma had initially started as a suspicious spot on his toe, which he had ignored, assuming it was simply an injury from sports. But the disease had already spread to other areas of his body by the time it was detected. The news was shocking. How could a man at the peak of his career, who had so much more to give, be faced with such a devastating diagnosis? The cancer had been caught too late, and Marley's chances of survival were slim. Yet, despite the severity of the diagnosis, Marley continued to hold on to his belief in healing and natural remedies, unwilling to accept the grim prognosis from conventional medical experts. Many fans were unaware of his diagnosis at the time. Bob Marley's image was one of strength, defiance, and joy. The man who had brought so much light into the world was now struggling with his own life-or-death battle. But even in the face of such overwhelming adversity, Marley remained positive, determined to continue performing and spreading his messages of peace and love. He chose to keep his diagnosis largely private, continuing with his tours and public appearances as much as possible. Marley was adamant about not letting his illness define him or slow down his work. His music continued to thrive, and he even managed to complete several important albums during this time. His ability to keep performing despite the ravaging effects of his illness was a testament to his unyielding spirit. When Bob Marley's doctors informed him that the pain in his toe was caused by malignant melanoma, it came as a devastating shock. Melanoma is a type of skin cancer that begins in the melanocytes, the cells responsible for producing pigment in the skin. Unlike other forms of cancer, melanoma is notoriously aggressive and can spread quickly to other parts of the body if not detected early. For Marley, this was the grim reality. The cancer had already spread beyond his toe, invading other vital areas. What made the diagnosis even more complex was the fact that Marley had ignored the early symptoms of the disease. The initial spot on his toe had been something he attributed to an old injury from football. It wasn't until the pain became too intense and debilitating that he sought medical attention. By then, the cancer had metastasized, making it much harder to treat. Doctors informed him that it was a rare and aggressive form of melanoma, which had already spread to his lymph nodes and other organs. The prognosis was grim. Without immediate treatment, the chances of survival were slim. Despite the severity of the situation, Bob Marley maintained a calm demeanor. He had always been someone who believed in the power of the mind and spirit, and his Rastafarian faith encouraged him to explore natural healing methods. Many people in Marley's life, including his doctors, advised him to undergo conventional treatments like surgery and chemotherapy, but he was resistant. Instead, Marley turned to alternative medicine, hoping that it would help him fight the disease in a way that aligned with his deeply held beliefs. One of the primary treatments Marley pursued was a regimen of herbal remedies, which were prescribed by a holistic healer. Marley believed that the combination of natural herbs and spiritual healing would offer him a better chance at survival. His decision to avoid chemotherapy was largely influenced by his skepticism about Western medicine and his faith in Rastafarian teachings, which emphasized natural living and healing. However, as his condition worsened, it became increasingly clear that the alternative treatments were not having the desired effect. Marley's health deteriorated rapidly, and his strength began to fade. Despite the toll the illness was taking on his body, he refused to give up. Marley continued to perform when he could, despite his weakening condition, and his commitment to his music and message never faltered. In 1980, during the final year of his life, Marley embarked on what would become his last tour, his Uprising Tour. The tour was successful and filled with memorable performances, but it was evident to those close to him that Marley's health was in serious decline. He had difficulty walking, and his energy was not what it once had been. Yet, even in the face of such dire circumstances, Marley kept his fans at the forefront of his mind, pouring everything he had into each performance. He was determined to leave his mark, even if his time was limited. By this point, Marley's condition was so advanced that his body was no longer able to function at full capacity. He had difficulty breathing, and his once vibrant energy was waning. His family and friends began to express concern, urging him to seek more aggressive medical treatment. But Marley, ever the optimist, remained focused on his work, unwilling to let his battle with cancer overshadow his passion for music and activism. Bob Marley's decision to avoid conventional medical treatments in favor of alternative remedies was deeply rooted in his personal beliefs and his Rastafarian faith. Rastafarianism, which emphasizes living in harmony with nature and a strong connection to spiritual healing, encouraged Marley to seek out natural ways to treat his illness. His faith, which teaches that the body should be treated with respect and care through natural means, led him to pursue herbal remedies and other non-traditional therapies. Marley's reluctance to embrace chemotherapy and surgery wasn't just about rejecting Western medicine. It was also about his deeply held conviction that healing could be achieved through the power of nature. Marley often spoke about the mind-body connection and the importance of maintaining a balance between physical health and spiritual well-being. To him, the idea of natural healing was more than just a treatment. It was a philosophy of life, one that aligned with his understanding of health and wellness. In addition to seeking natural remedies, Marley also turned to spiritual leaders within his Rastafarian community. He sought guidance from those who had experience with spiritual healing practices, believing that his body and soul could be healed through the right combination of spiritual focus, faith, and natural treatments. His belief in the power of the mind was central to this process, as Marley remained optimistic that his positive outlook would help him overcome the disease. However, as Marley's health continued to decline, the limitations of these alternative treatments became more apparent. Despite his belief in their power, it became clear that the cancer was not responding to the natural remedies as he had hoped. The tumor in his toe, which was the first sign of the disease, had continued to grow, and his other organs had started to become affected. His doctors and family members, especially his wife Rita Marley, were concerned about his decision to rely solely on alternative medicine. They encouraged him to reconsider his stance on conventional medical treatments. Yet even in the face of worsening health, Marley remained steadfast in his refusal to undergo chemotherapy or surgery. He continued to trust in his own healing methods, even as his physical strength deteriorated. His faith in the natural remedies and his belief that his body could heal itself through spiritual and herbal interventions kept him from seeking more conventional treatments. While Marley's family and friends were supportive of his decisions, they could only watch in concern as his health worsened. It was evident that Marley's refusal to seek further medical intervention was taking a toll. Still, he remained determined to push forward with his tour and music, perhaps as a way of continuing his mission to spread messages of love and hope to the world, even as his body struggled to keep up. In 1980, the year before his death, Marley's health had deteriorated to the point where he could no longer continue performing at the level he once had. He suffered from difficulty walking and breathing, and his energy was no longer sufficient for the long tours he had previously thrived on. However, Marley's unwavering commitment to his craft, despite his physical limitations, remained a defining feature of his character. His decision to continue performing, even as his condition worsened, spoke to his profound dedication to his music and his message. Bob Marley's decision to avoid conventional medical treatments in favor of alternative remedies was deeply rooted in his personal beliefs and his Rastafarian faith. Rastafarianism, which emphasizes living in harmony with nature and a strong connection to spiritual healing, encouraged Marley to seek out natural ways to treat his illness. His faith, which teaches that the body should be treated with respect and care through natural means, led him to pursue herbal remedies and other non-traditional therapies. Marley's reluctance to embrace chemotherapy and surgery wasn't just about rejecting Western medicine. It was also about his deeply held conviction that healing could be achieved through the power of nature. Marley often spoke about the mind-body connection and the importance of maintaining a balance between physical health and spiritual well-being. To him, the idea of natural healing was more than just a treatment. It was a philosophy of life, one that aligned with his understanding of health and wellness. In addition to seeking natural remedies, Marley also turned to spiritual leaders within his Rastafarian community. He sought guidance from those who had experience with spiritual healing practices, believing that his body and soul could be healed through the right combination of spiritual focus, faith, and natural treatments. His belief in the power of the mind was central to this process, as Marley remained optimistic that his positive outlook would help him overcome the disease. However, as Marley's health continued to decline, the limitations of these alternative treatments became more apparent. Despite his belief in their power, it became clear that the cancer was not responding to the natural remedies as he had hoped. The tumor in his toe, which was the first sign of the disease, had continued to grow, and his other organs had started to become affected. His doctors and family members, especially his wife Rita Marley, were concerned about his decision to rely solely on alternative medicine. They encouraged him to reconsider his stance on conventional medical treatments. Yet, even in the face of worsening health, Marley remained steadfast in his refusal to undergo chemotherapy or surgery. He continued to trust in his own healing methods, even as his physical strength deteriorated. His faith in the natural remedies and his belief that his body could heal itself through spiritual and herbal interventions kept him from seeking more conventional treatments. While Marley's family and friends were supportive of his decisions, they could only watch in concern as his health worsened. It was evident that Marley's refusal to seek further medical intervention was taking a toll. Still, he remained determined to push forward with his tour and music, perhaps as a way of continuing his mission to spread messages of love and hope to the world, even as his body struggled to keep up. In 1980, the year before his death, Marley's health had deteriorated to the point where he could no longer continue performing at the level he once had. He suffered from difficulty walking and breathing, and his energy was no longer sufficient for the long tours he had previously thrived on. However, Marley's unwavering commitment to his craft, despite his physical limitations, remained a defining feature of his character. His decision to continue performing, even as his condition worsened, spoke to his profound dedication to his music and his message. As Bob Marley's health continued to decline, those around him began to realize the severity of his condition. Despite his unwavering optimism and dedication to his music, the reality of his situation could no longer be ignored. In the final year of his life, Marley's struggle with cancer became increasingly visible, even to the public. His once vibrant energy, the driving force behind his electrifying performances, was now gone, replaced by fatigue, shortness of breath, and a deepening sense of physical weakness. Marley's condition became particularly noticeable during his 1980 Uprising tour. His fans continued to flock to his concerts, eager to experience the magic of his music, unaware that this would be his final series of live performances. As he took the stage, it was clear that Marley was not the same man who had dominated the stage just a few years earlier. He moved slowly, often with a noticeable limp, and his once energetic movements were replaced with carefully measured steps. His ability to perform with the same vigor was compromised, but his dedication to the music and his fans remained unshaken. Despite the physical toll the illness was taking on him, Marley pushed through, determined to fulfill his commitment to his fans and complete the tour. His bandmates, family and friends watched with concern as he continued to perform, knowing that his health was rapidly deteriorating. There were moments during his concerts when it was clear that Marley was struggling, yet he never faltered in his commitment to the message he was spreading through his music. His fans, unaware of the full extent of his condition, cheered him on, moved by the raw emotion and power in his performances. But as the tour went on, Marley's condition grew worse. His breathing difficulties became more pronounced, and he began to experience severe fatigue that would leave him exhausted after even the shortest set. Despite this, Marley refused to stop performing. He had an unshakable belief that his music was part of his mission, and he wasn't willing to let his illness stop him from spreading his message of unity, peace, and love. Behind the scenes, Marley's family and closest friends were deeply concerned. They knew that his body was failing him, and they could see the toll that the grueling tour was taking on him physically. His wife, Rita Marley, urged him to stop the tour and seek more intensive medical treatment, but Marley refused. He was determined to finish what he had started, believing that his music and his mission were too important to put on hold. By this time the Uprising tour ended in September 1980. Marley was in a significantly weakened state. His once powerful voice had become strained, and his body seemed to be failing him in ways he couldn't control. After the tour, Marley's friends and family insisted that he seek more conventional medical treatment. They arranged for him to travel to the United States, where he could receive more aggressive care. But by then, Marley's body was too far gone for conventional treatments to make a difference. Marley's trip to the US marked a pivotal moment in his battle with cancer. He was taken to Miami, where he sought medical attention from a specialist who recommended a treatment plan that included chemotherapy and radiation. Marley, however, continued to believe in the healing power of natural remedies and was hesitant to embrace the recommended treatments. Despite his declining condition, he hoped that the combination of spiritual healing, rest, and natural methods would be enough to turn things around. During his time in Miami, Marley's health continued to decline rapidly. His ability to breathe without assistance became more difficult, and he experienced increasing pain and discomfort. His once strong and vibrant presence was now a shadow of its former self, but Marley's spirit remained unbroken. He continued to engage with those around him, offering words of encouragement and advice to his family and friends. Even as he fought his personal battle with cancer, Marley's concern for others and his commitment to his message of unity and love never wavered. Despite the growing realization that Marley's time was limited, those closest to him tried to remain hopeful. His family and friends continued to support him in every way they could, doing their best to maintain his quality of life in his final months. Marley's legacy, which had already been solidified through his music, activism, and unwavering spirit, would continue to inspire generations to come, even as his own battle against cancer raged on. The final months of Bob Marley's life were marked by an increasing sense of urgency and helplessness as his body struggled to keep up with the effects of the malignant melanoma. His family and closest friends, who had watched him defy the odds throughout his career, now found themselves confronted with the undeniable reality that their beloved icon was slowly slipping away. Despite his continued refusal to accept conventional treatment and his steadfast belief in natural healing, Marley's body was deteriorating at an alarming rate. In the months following the Uprising tour, Bob Marley made the decision to travel to Miami, where he sought medical care from a specialist, Dr. Joseph Eisels. Dr. Eisels was known for his unconventional methods, particularly his focus on detoxifying the body and stimulating the immune system. While some viewed Dr. Eisels' approach as a last-ditch effort, Marley hoped that the treatment would help him turn the tide against the aggressive cancer that had already spread throughout his body. Upon his arrival in Miami, Marley was clearly in pain. He had lost a significant amount of weight, his energy was low, and his body seemed fragile. His ability to walk was severely compromised, and he was often confined to a wheelchair. Despite these visible signs of decline, Marley refused to give up on his belief that he could overcome the disease. His strong sense of spirituality and Unwavering faith in his Rastafarian beliefs kept him going. He continued to surround himself with close friends, family and confidants, many of whom took it upon themselves to support him in this difficult time. Throughout his treatment in Miami, Marley's thoughts were still focused on his music and his message. He continued to express his desire to see the world experience peace and unity, even as he faced his own personal struggle. It was clear that the man who had once been a symbol of resilience and hope was now relying on his inner strength more than ever before. He had already shared so much with the world through his music, but now in his final months, he seemed more focused than ever on the importance of love, unity, and the message that had defined his entire career. During this time, Marley's family members, including his wife Rita, were by his side as much as possible. They watched as he became increasingly frail, but they continued to offer their support and care. Marley's children, too, were there with him during his final moments, as his family gathered around him in the hope that they could provide comfort and companionship during his final journey. While his family continued to support his decision to rely on alternative medicine, they also feared that Marley's refusal to accept the severity of his illness would prevent him from fully confronting the inevitable. Many close to him had hoped that he would begin to embrace more conventional treatments, but Marley remained steadfast in his belief that the natural path was the one that would lead him to healing. As the weeks went by, Marley's health continued to decline. His skin, once radiant, became pale and sallow, and his body became frailer with each passing day. His once strong and commanding presence seemed to shrink, and his energy was nearly depleted. Despite the pain he was enduring, Marley continued to exhibit a sense of calm, often reflecting on his life and his legacy. In these final months, Marley's thoughts appeared to turn inward. He spoke to his family about his legacy, his love for his children, and his gratitude for the life he had lived. Even though he had faced numerous challenges throughout his career, Marley seemed at peace with the idea that he had accomplished what he had set out to do. His music, his activism, and his message of unity had left an indelible mark on the world, and he could take solace in knowing that his influence would continue to shape future generations. Despite his decline, Marley remained a powerful symbol of resistance and hope, even in the face of death. He had spent his life fighting for a better world, using his music to address inequality, poverty, and injustice. And in his final months, he continued to exude that same strength and commitment to his beliefs. His willingness to face death with grace and dignity, while continuing to share his message of peace and love, only further solidified his status as a cultural icon. On May 11, 1981, after a long and courageous battle with cancer, Bob Marley passed away at the age of 36. His death marked the end of an era, not only in music but also in the larger cultural and political landscape. The world had lost one of its most iconic figures, someone who had used his platform to challenge injustice, spread messages of peace, and uplift the downtrodden. While his passing was deeply mourned, Marley's legacy lived on through his music, activism, and the message of unity that he championed throughout his life. Marley's death came after a period of intense suffering. Despite all of his efforts to heal through natural remedies and alternative treatments, his cancer had continued to spread, leaving him too weak to fight any longer. As his condition deteriorated, Marley's family and friends remained by his side, offering their support and love until the very end. The final days of his life were spent in Miami, where he had sought treatment. But by then it was clear that the disease had already taken its toll. In the days leading up to his death, Marley's body was no longer able to function properly. His organs began to shut down as the cancer spread throughout his body, and he was increasingly unable to breathe on his own. However, Marley's spirit remained strong. Even in his last moments, he expressed his gratitude for the love and support that he had received from his family and his fans. According to reports, he was at peace with the idea of passing away, having made peace with his life and the choices he had made. He reportedly told his son Ziggy, "Money can't buy life," a statement that encapsulated his deep understanding of the importance of living fully, but also his acceptance of the inevitable. Bob Marley's death was met with an outpouring of grief from around the world. Fans, celebrities, and political figures alike mourned the loss of the man whose music had inspired a generation and whose words had resonated deeply with people from all walks of life. In Jamaica, where Marley's influence was most profound, his death was felt as a national tragedy. The people of Jamaica, who had viewed Marley not only as a musical icon, but also as a spiritual and political leader, came together in mourning, holding memorial services and celebrations of his life and legacy. In the United States, where Marley had lived for much of his final year, his death sparked tributes and memorials as well. Marley had spent the last months of his life in Miami, seeking treatment and attempting to hold on to his hope for a cure. Even though his death was not a surprise, it hit the world hard. Fans everywhere from all walks of life found themselves reflecting on his music, his activism, and the way he had touched their hearts. His legacy was too vast to be contained by one life. It was embedded in the songs he had written and the messages of peace, equality, and love that he had shared with the world. Despite his death, Marley's influence did not diminish. His music continued to resonate, and his message of resistance, unity, and peace remained powerful and relevant. Albums like Legend and Exodus continued to be celebrated, and Marley's songs like No Woman, No Cry, Redemption Song, and One Love became anthems that transcended time and space. His music continued to inspire new generations, even as the world mourned the loss of the man behind the voice. In the years following his death, Bob Marley became a symbol not only of reggae music, but also of global resistance. His music served as a powerful reminder that the fight for social justice, unity, and peace was ongoing, and that one person, through their words and actions, could make a difference. His messages of love and unity were more than just lyrics. They were the guiding principles that led his life and work. Even in death, his voice continued to echo across the world, inspiring new movements for justice, equality, and peace. Even though Bob Marley passed away at a young age, his legacy remains alive and relevant in today's world. His contributions to music, culture, and social activism have left an indelible mark on both his native Jamaica and the global stage. Marley's work continues to inspire people of all backgrounds, and his messages of unity, peace, and resistance are as important today as they were during his lifetime. As we reflect on his legacy, it's clear that his influence transcends the music industry, shaping social movements and inspiring generations of artists, activists, and fans. Musically, Marley's impact is immeasurable. As the frontman of the Wailers, he revolutionized the reggae genre, bringing it into the mainstream and creating a global audience for Jamaican music. Albums like Catch a Fire, Rastaman Vibration, and Exodus continue to be hailed as masterpieces, with tracks such as No Woman, No Cry, Redemption Song, and Buffalo Soldier standing the test of time. His ability to blend political, spiritual, and emotional themes into his songs gave reggae music a voice that resonated beyond Jamaica's borders. Marley's work didn't just reflect his personal beliefs, but also the struggles of the oppressed. His songs often conveyed messages of resistance, calling for unity among disenfranchised people. Get Up, Stand Up became an anthem for those fighting against injustice and inequality, while War, with its powerful lyrics inspired by Haile Selassie's 1963 speech to the United Nations, boldly addressed issues of racism, human rights, and political corruption. Marley's music was not just entertainment, it was a rallying cry for social change. Through his lyrics, he gave a voice to the voiceless and encouraged people to take action against injustice, making him not only a musical icon but also an influential political figure. Beyond music, Marley's Rastafarian beliefs shaped his worldview and his approach to life, and they continue to influence people around the globe. His adherence to a natural lifestyle and his promotion of the use of cannabis for spiritual and medicinal purposes have made him a symbol of alternative living. His advocacy for peace, unity, and social justice has resonated with people worldwide, inspiring movements for human rights, environmental sustainability, and equality. One of the key aspects of Marley's legacy is his role as a global ambassador for Jamaican culture. His prominence on the world stage brought attention to the island's music, traditions, and struggles, while his embrace of Rastafarianism exposed millions to the faith and its tenets. By intertwining his spirituality with his music, Marley not only educated listeners about his religion, but also made Rastafarianism a powerful symbol of resistance and identity for oppressed people everywhere. His use of his platform to advocate for political and social causes also helped to elevate Jamaica as a country that had something important to say on the world stage. Marley's impact was not confined to the cultural realm. His activism extended to numerous causes, including fighting against apartheid in South Africa, supporting the civil rights movement in the United States, and campaigning for the empowerment of marginalized communities across the globe. He believed deeply in human rights and was unafraid to speak out against governments and systems that oppressed people. One of his most famous moments of activism was during the One Love Peace concert in 1978, where Marley famously brought together political rivals Michael Manley and Edward Seager, both of whom were in the midst of a fierce political conflict in Jamaica, urging them to put aside their differences and work together for the good of the country. This moment showcased Marley's commitment to peace, even in the face of great political tension. Another aspect of Marley's lasting legacy is the way he lived his life. He was someone who, despite facing significant challenges, be it his struggle with poverty, the political turbulence in Jamaica, or his personal battles, remained committed to his values. Marley's faith, his belief in unity, and his desire for peace were central to his identity, and he lived them out every day. He was also known for his generosity and his ability to connect with people from all walks of life, regardless of their race, social status, or background. His authenticity, humility, and deep sense of compassion continue to inspire fans and individuals who seek to live meaningful, purpose-driven lives. Today, Marley's influence can be seen in countless ways. His music remains a staple on the airwaves, continuing to inspire and uplift listeners. Festivals, tribute concerts, and documentaries dedicated to his life and work are regularly held around the world, where people from all corners of the globe come together to celebrate his legacy. Additionally, his children, particularly Ziggy Marley, have continued his musical legacy with their own careers reflecting his values and sound. Even in death, Bob Marley's voice, message, and presence continue to inspire. His name has become synonymous with the quest for freedom, justice, and love, and his music serves as a constant reminder that one person can make a difference in the world. In an era where social issues still demand attention and the struggle for equality and peace persists, Bob Marley's words still resonate deeply. One Love, Get Up, Stand Up, and Redemption Song are as relevant now as they were in the past. Marley's legacy is a testament to the power of music to change lives and the enduring impact of an artist who used his fame to fight for a better world.